The phone call started like all the others. My mother's voice was already raised before I could even say hello. "Your brother needs help," she said. No greeting. No asking how I was. Just the demand, delivered like I'd been expecting it. "What happened this time?" I asked, though I already knew the pattern. "Legal fees. The lawyer needs $15,000 upfront or they'll drop his case." Her voice had that edge. Half pleading, half accusatory. We wouldn't ask if we had any other choice. My father's voice cut in. He must have been on speaker. "If you don't pay his legal fees, you're not family. Simple as that. We need to know whose side you're on." I opened my mouth to respond, but before I could form words, the line went dead. They'd hung up on me, given me an ultimatum, and didn't even wait for my answer. I stared at my phone, the screen dark and silent. They meant it. After 28 years of being their daughter, I'd been reduced to a bank account. And now that I'd finally said no, I wasn't family anymore. This wasn't the first bailout. It was the third in 2 years. The pattern was so familiar it felt like a script we were all following. The first time, my brother Kyle had been arrested for DUI. The legal fees had been $8,000. I'd emptied my emergency fund completely to cover it, telling myself it was family. That's what you do for family. "It's the last time," my mother had promised. He's learned his lesson. The second bailout came 10 months later. Kyle had gotten into a bar fight, and somehow it turned into assault charges. The lawyer wanted $12,000. I'd been saving for a house down payment. Had $14,000 tucked away after years of careful saving. I'd given them $12,000. Delayed my home purchase. Reset my timeline. "This is absolutely the last time," my father had said, his hand on my shoulder. "We won't forget this." Now here we were. Third time. $15,000. For charges I didn't even want to know about. And this time I'd finally said what I'd never admitted out loud. I was never the priority. I was just the emergency fund. Kyle was 2 years younger than me, but you'd think he was the favorite child from how differently we'd been treated our entire lives. When I was 16 and got straight A's, my parents said, "That's expected." When Kyle barely passed his classes, they threw him a party for trying his best. I worked 2 jobs through college. Kyle dropped out after 1 semester and moved back home. "He's finding himself," Mom explained. I paid my own rent, my own car, my own everything. Kyle borrowed money constantly. From them, from friends, from me, and never paid anyone back. Every reckless choice, every bad decision, every consequence was cushioned by my parents' unwavering defense. He was creative, misunderstood, going through a phase. Meanwhile, I was reliable, responsible, strong. "You're stronger, you can handle it," my mother had told me more times than I could count. As if strength meant I should shoulder everyone's burdens while Kyle lived consequence-free. The pattern had been obvious for years. I just hadn't wanted to see it. Or maybe I had seen it and chose to believe it would change. Never did. They followed through on their threat. 2 days after the phone call, I tried calling my mother. The call went straight to a message saying the number was no longer in service. She'd blocked me. My father's number did the same thing. Block. I texted my aunt, my mother's sister, asking if she'd heard from them. The text sat on delivered but was never read. Also blocked. Extended family members I'd been close with suddenly went silent. My cousin who I'd had lunch with monthly stopped responding. Holiday came and went with no invitations, no calls, no messages. It was like I'd been erased from the family entirely. 28 years of being their daughter, and I'd been cut off faster than you'd cancel a subscription service. The silence hurt. I wouldn't pretend it didn't. There were nights I lay awake wondering if I'd made the wrong choice. If I should have just paid one more time. But underneath the hurt, something else was growing. Something I didn't expect. A strange, quiet peace. 3 weeks into the silence, I almost caved. I opened my banking app and looked at my savings account. I had $17,000. Enough to cover Kyle's legal fees with some left over. I drafted a text message to my mother. I'll pay half. That's the best I can do. My finger hovered over the send button. I imagined their relief, their gratitude, being welcomed back into the family fold, things going back to normal. Then I stopped, really stopped, and thought about what normal meant. Normal meant being called only when they needed money. Normal meant my accomplishments being minimized while Kyle's failures were excused. Normal meant being strong enough to handle everything while receiving nothing in return. I deleted the message, closed the banking app, turned off my phone. Something in me had shifted. Not rage, not bitterness, just clarity. Crystal clear understanding that I'd been participating in a dynamic that was destroying me. For the first time in my life, I chose myself. With my family gone, I had time. Time I'd usually spent managing their crises or worrying about their problems. Time I'd spent being the reliable one. I threw myself into work, picked up extra projects, got promoted to senior analyst within 4 months. My boss noticed the change in me. More focused, more confident, less distracted. I started educating myself about finance. Real finance, not just basic budgeting. I read books about investing, took online courses about portfolio management, learned about different asset classes and investment strategies. One evening, I attended a financial literacy workshop at the local library. The speaker was a woman in her 50s who'd built wealth slowly and deliberately over decades. Nothing flashy, just steady, smart decisions compounding over time. After her talk, I approached her. We ended up at a coffee shop, talking for 2 hours about financial independence and building security. "Have you ever considered alternative investments?" she asked. "Debt portfolios, for example." I admitted I didn't know what that meant. She explained, and something clicked in my mind. Familiar name. A connection I hadn't expected. Debt portfolios weren't as complicated as they sounded. When people owed money and couldn't pay, those debts often got bundled together and sold to collection agencies. The agencies bought the debt for pennies on the dollar, then tried to collect the full amount. It was legal, regulated, and surprisingly common. Small investors can buy into these portfolios, my new mentor explained. Not individual debts, that's not how it works. But you can invest in agencies that manage collections. Some are ethical, working with debtors to create payment plans. Others are predatory. I absorbed this information like a sponge. Spent weeks researching the industry, learning the regulations, understanding the difference between legitimate collection agencies and predatory ones. One name kept appearing in my research. Horizon Recovery Services. A mid-sized collection agency that had recently restructured. They focused on working with debtors rather than harassing them. Payment plans. Reasonable terms. Actually trying to help people while recovering what was owed. The name was familiar. Very familiar. I dug through old mail I'd helped my parents sort months before I'd been cut off. Found what I was looking for. Collection notice. From Horizon Recovery Services. For my parents' credit card debt. My parents owed $43,000 to a credit card company. The debt had gone unpaid for 18 months before being sold to Horizon Recovery Services. I verified everything carefully. Public records. Credit reports I could access legally. The information was all there, documented and official. Horizon had purchased their debt as part of a larger portfolio. Hundreds of accounts bundled together. The agency had paid roughly 18 cents on the dollar for the entire bundle. They'd invested about $8,000 to acquire debt worth $43,000. My parents had been making minimum payments to Horizon, barely enough to cover interest. At their current rate, they'd be paying for 20 years and still owe most of the principal. Meanwhile, they demanded I pay $15,000 for Kyle's legal fees. Money they didn't have. Money they expected me to sacrifice while they struggled under their own debt. The irony was almost painful. I sat with this information for days. Thinking, planning, making sure my motivations were clear. This wasn't about revenge. It couldn't be. But it could be about justice. I didn't rush. Revenge is hot and impulsive. What I was considering was cold and calculated. It had to be ethical, legal, something I could defend without shame. I spent 2 months learning everything about debt acquisition, attended more workshops, consulted with financial advisors, made sure I understood every regulation and requirement. The key question I kept asking myself: am I doing this to hurt them or to help myself? If the answer was to hurt them, I'd stop immediately. But the truth was more complicated. I was building financial security, learning a new investment strategy, making smart moves with my money. The fact that it intersected with my parents' situation was almost incidental. I set strict boundaries for myself. I would only move forward if I could do so ethically. No harassment, no predatory tactics, everything by the book. If they paid, great. If they didn't, I'd work with them fairly. I reminded myself daily. This is business. Professional, clean. But deep down I knew it was more than that. It was the final boundary. The ultimate statement that they no longer controlled me. 6 months after being cut off, I finalized the purchase. Not of their individual debt, that's not how it worked. But I acquired a significant stake in Horizon Recovery Services itself. Became a major stakeholder with voting rights and access to account management decisions. The acquisition was clean, legal, processed through proper channels with lawyers and contracts and documentation. Nobody could question the legitimacy of what I'd done. I now had indirect control over hundreds of accounts, including the one tied to my parents' debt. My mentor congratulated me. You're building a solid portfolio. Horizon is well managed. Ethical. This is smart investing. She didn't know about the personal connection. I hadn't told her. Didn't need to. The investment stood on its own merits. But I knew. I knew exactly which account I'd be watching, which payment plan I'd be reviewing, which debtors would be dealing with me, even if they didn't realize it yet. The first notification came through Horizon's system 3 weeks later. My parents had missed their monthly payment. First time in 6 months. I made a note in the file. One missed payment wasn't unusual, but the pattern was starting. My parents noticed something was different within a month. The collection letters stopped coming. The automated phone calls that had been coming weekly suddenly went silent. From what I learned through Horizon's system, they'd called the agency multiple times, confused about why communication had ceased. Were they off the hook? Had the debt been forgiven? No. Just the opposite. The account had been flagged for review. New management oversight. Different protocols. They'd gone from routine collections to special handling. And they had no idea why. My mother left a voicemail on my old number, the one she'd blocked. Horizon's system had logged the attempt. She sounded confused, worried. Something's wrong with the debt people. They won't call us back. If you hear from us, call. Please. The voicemail was the first contact in 7 months. Not an apology. Not an acknowledgement of what they'd done. Just asking for help. I didn't respond. Not yet. 2 weeks later, another voicemail came. This one was different. My mother was crying. Sweetheart, please. I know we haven't talked. I know things ended badly. But something's happening with our debt and we're scared. The collection agency won't answer our questions. We don't know what's going on. Her voice broke. We need your help. You're good with this stuff. Financial things. Please call us back. Still no apology. No acknowledgement of cutting me off for refusing to enable Kyle for the 3rd time. Just fear. Just the assumption that I'd be there to rescue them again. I listened to the voicemail 3 times. Felt that familiar pull. The ingrained habit of dropping everything to solve their problems. But I'd learned something in those 7 months of silence. I'd learned that I didn't have to respond to every emergency. That their crises weren't automatically my responsibility. I saved the voicemail for my records. But I didn't call back. Extended family members suddenly resurfaced. My aunt, the one who'd blocked me, sent a long text message about family and forgiveness. Your parents are going through something difficult, she wrote. They need you. I know there was a disagreement, but you have to be the bigger person. The bigger person. Always the bigger person. Never them. Never Kyle. Always me. My cousin called. Come on. Whatever happened, it's time to move past it. Family is family. I asked him one question. Where were you when I needed help? Silence on the other end of the line. When I was working 2 jobs to put myself through college while Kyle lived at home rent-free. Where were you? When I emptied my emergency fund the first time, did you offer to help? When I delayed buying a house to bail him out the second time, did anyone say maybe that wasn't fair? More silence. You only care now because they need something. Just like they only cared about me when they needed something. I'm done being the family ATM. I hung up before he could respond. Kyle himself reached out 2 weeks later. A long, angry text message that arrived at 11 at night. You're really going to do this? Let mom and dad suffer because you're being petty. They sacrificed everything for us and you can't even help them with one problem. He continued. This is your fault. If you'd helped me with the legal fees like family is supposed to do, none of this would be happening. They had to drain their savings to help me because you abandoned us. The lack of self-awareness was stunning. He'd created the problem. They'd enabled it. And somehow I was the villain for setting a boundary. I read his message 3 times, feeling that old familiar guilt trying to take root. The guilt they'd planted in me over decades. The obligation. The responsibility. But it didn't stick this time. I replied with one sentence. You still haven't learned a single thing. Then I blocked his number too. The meeting request came through official channels. My father sent an email to my work address, the only contact information they still had. Can we meet? As a family. Neutral ground. Please. We need to talk. I considered ignoring it. But curiosity won. What would they say? Would they apologize? Acknowledge what they'd done? I agreed to meet at a coffee shop downtown. Public. Neutral. Easy to leave if needed. My terms. 1 hour. No Kyle. Just the 3 of us. They agreed immediately. Too immediately. They were desperate. The meeting was set for Saturday at 2. I prepared carefully. Rehearsed my boundaries. Reminded myself I didn't owe them anything. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't nervous. 8 months since I'd seen them. 8 months of silence and hurt and growth. I arrived 10 minutes early. Watched them walk in through the window. They looked older. Tired. My mother's hair had more gray. My father's shoulders were slumped. They saw me and something like relief crossed their faces. This was going to be interesting. They sat down across from me with coffees they'd ordered at the counter. My mother's hands were shaking slightly as she wrapped them around her cup. Thank you for meeting us, my father started. His tone was conciliatory. Careful. We know things got heated. We want to fix this. Fix it how? Yes. We're family, my mother said. We shouldn't let money come between us. What happened with Kyle, it was a stressful time. We said things we didn't mean. You cut me off, I reminded them. Blocked my number. Told me I wasn't family anymore. That wasn't heat of the moment. That was a decision. My father shifted uncomfortably. We were wrong. We see that now. We want to move forward. What changed? Yes. 8 months of silence, and suddenly you want to reconcile. Why now? They exchanged glances. My mother spoke carefully. We're having some financial difficulties. The debt situation is getting complicated. We thought maybe you could help us understand. Understand what? The collection agency. Horizon. They've gone silent. Won't return our calls. We're worried they're going to sue or garnish or... I interrupted. You're here about your debt. Another glance between them. My father cleared his throat. Partly. But also to repair. Let me correct one detail, I said calmly. Horizon hasn't gone silent. The account is under active review. New management oversight. Confusion spread across their faces. How do you know that? My mother asked. I didn't reveal everything. Not yet. Just enough to shift the power dynamic completely. I'm involved with the agency, I said simply. I know how they operate, what their protocols are, how they handle different account situations. My father's face went pale. Involved how? Let's just say I have insight into how these things work. Are you working for them? My mother asked. Can you help us? I didn't say I was working for them. I said I was involved. I took a sip of my coffee. The account is being handled, following proper procedures. Everything by the book. But can you? My father started. What I can do depends on a lot of factors, I interrupted. Understanding the full situation, payment history, current financial standing, willingness to work within the system. The confusion on their faces was turning to fear. They were starting to understand that something had shifted, but they couldn't quite grasp what. We thought we could maybe work out a payment plan, my mother said desperately. Something manageable. Can you help arrange that? Maybe, I replied. I'll consider what's fair. The word fair hung in the air between us. My mother leaned forward, her voice taking on that pleading tone I'd heard so many times before. Please. We're desperate. The interest is killing us. We can't keep up with the payments. If they sue us, we could lose the house. We know we made mistakes, my father added. With you. With Kyle. We see that now. We just need help getting through this. For the first time in my life, I was watching my parents be afraid. Really afraid. Not of losing control over me, but of real consequences they couldn't escape. Part of me wanted to make them suffer. To let them feel the powerlessness I'd felt every time they demanded I sacrifice myself for Kyle. But that wasn't who I wanted to be. I'll consider a payment plan extension, I said carefully. Something structured, reasonable, better terms than what you're currently working with. Relief flooded their faces. Thank you. Thank you so much. But, I continued, there will be conditions, non-negotiable conditions. And before we discuss those, there's something you need to understand. What? My mother asked. I don't work for Horizon Recovery Services, I said clearly. I'm not an employee. Then how are you involved? My father pressed. I met his eyes directly. I own a controlling stake in the company. I'm a major shareholder. The agency you owe money to. I helped acquire it. Legally. Ethically. Your debt is part of a portfolio I now control. The silence that followed was absolute. My mother's mouth opened and closed without sound. My father stared at me like I was a stranger. That's not possible, my mother whispered finally. I pulled out my phone and showed them the documentation. Legal papers. Ownership agreements. Everything properly notarized and filed. It's not only possible. Done. Has been for 4 months. You bought the company we owe money to? My father asked, his voice hollow. I invested in a debt collection agency that happened to own your debt, among hundreds of others. It was a smart financial move. Horizon is ethical, well-managed, profitable. Any financial advisor would recommend it. This is... My mother trailed off. Revenge, I supplied. Well, this is business. Clean business. Legal business. But yes, I knew about your debt when I made the investment. And yes, I knew exactly what position it would put me in. My father found his voice. You did this to punish us. I did this to protect myself. To build my own financial security. To stop being the person who sacrifices everything for a family that doesn't appreciate it. Lean back. The fact that it intersects with your situation is just karma. What are you going to do? My mother whispered my name like she didn't recognize me anymore. That depends on you. My father's face turned red. This is cruel. You're holding our debt over our heads to get revenge for. For what? For us asking you to help your brother. You didn't ask, I corrected. You demanded. You threatened. You cut me off when I finally set a boundary. We're your parents. And I'm your daughter. But you forgot that part when you decided Kyle's mistakes were more important than my well-being. My mother tried a different approach. We know we handled things badly. We're sorry. But this, using our financial problems against us. Using them how? I interrupted. I haven't done anything yet. Haven't changed your payment terms. Haven't threatened you. Haven't harassed you. I've just stopped letting you pretend I don't exist when it's convenient. I pulled out a folder I'd prepared. This is your current payment plan with Horizon. 20 years at this rate. You'll pay back triple what you originally borrowed in interest alone. They looked at the documents, their faces falling as they recognized the numbers. I'm prepared to offer you something better. Reduced interest. Shorter term. Actually manageable payments. Better than any deal you'd get from any other collection agency. Hope flickered in their eyes. But it comes with conditions. And you need to hear them before you decide anything. I spread out the papers on the table between us. Everything printed clearly, legally reviewed, ready to be signed. First condition, you pay. Every month. Time. No excuses. No emergencies that require skipping payments. You're adults. You manage your money responsibly. They nodded. That part was fair. Second condition. No more bailouts for Kyle. Not from you. Not from me. Not from anyone. He faces the consequences of his own choices. My mother started to protest. He's your brother. He's an adult who's never faced a real consequence in his life because you always cushion his fall. That ends. If he needs help, he asks professionals. Therapy. Financial counseling. Whatever. But the family bank is closed. My father looked pained but didn't argue. Third condition, no guilt trips. No manipulation. No using family obligation to pressure me into things. You want a relationship with me. Great. But it's based on mutual respect, not on what I can do for you. And if we agree, my mother asked quietly, then you get a payment plan that will clear your debt in 5 years instead of 20. Interest cut by 60%. Monthly payments you can actually afford. All legally documented. No tricks. And if we don't agree, my father asked, then the current payment plan continues. Everything stays exactly as it is. Your choice. They looked at each other. The choice was obvious. But accepting it meant accepting everything that came with it. Accountability. Boundaries. Change. My mother spoke first. What about family dinners? Holidays? Do we just stop being a family? That's up to you, I replied. I'm not punishing you. I'm protecting myself. You can be in my life if you want. But on terms that respect both of us. No more asking for money, my father said slowly, understanding. No more demanding I sacrifice myself. Big difference. And Kyle, my mother asked. We just abandon him. You stop enabling him. Stop protecting him from consequences. Let him grow up. I softened slightly. He's not a bad person. He's just never had to be responsible. You did that to him by always catching him. My father leaned back in his chair, looking older than when we'd started. This is hard. It should be. Change is hard. But continuing the old pattern just leads to the same problems. You're drowning in debt partly because you keep bailing him out instead of managing your own finances. The truth hung heavy between us. They knew I was right. Had probably known for years. Just didn't want to admit it. We need to think about this, my mother said. Take your time. You have a week to decide. After that, I process the paperwork either way. Your choice which version I process. I stood to leave. They didn't stop me. I didn't hear from them for 5 days. Then Kyle's name showed up in my unblocked calls folder. I almost didn't answer. What did you do? He demanded when I picked up. Mom and Dad are losing it. Dad won't give me money for my rent. Mom keeps crying. What did you say to them? I told them the truth. That enabling you isn't helping anyone. You're turning them against me. No, Kyle. I'm giving them permission to stop hurting themselves to protect you from your own choices. This is because I asked for help with the legal fees, isn't it? You're still mad about. I'm not mad. I'm done. There's a difference. Kept my voice level. You need to figure out your own life. Get a job. Pay your own bills. Face your own consequences. They're going to kick me out. His voice was panicked now, not angry. You're 26 years old. You should have been out already. I can't believe you're doing this. To your own brother. I love you, Kyle. But I'm not going to keep participating in your destruction. Get help. Real help. Therapy. Financial counseling. Whatever you need. But I'm not your ATM anymore. Neither are they. He hung up on me. I expected that. What I didn't expect was the text message from my father 2 hours later. We're kicking him out. He has 30 days. First time we've ever said no. You're right. We created this. Time to fix it. The meeting happened at a lawyer's office. Neutral ground. Everything properly witnessed and notarized. My parents signed the new payment plan. 5 years. Reduced interest. Affordable monthly payments. The atmosphere was strange. Not celebratory. Not even comfortable. Just necessary. Like surgery that had to happen for healing to begin. We're sorry, my mother said after the paperwork was complete. For how we treated you. For the ultimatum. For cutting you off. It was the first real apology. No excuses. No justifications. Just acknowledgement. For making Kyle more important than you, my father added. For only calling when we needed something. For taking you for granted. I felt tears prick my eyes but didn't let them fall. Thank you. Can we? My mother hesitated. Can we try again? As a family? Yes. But it'll be different. Healthier boundaries. Mutual respect. Real relationship, not transactional. We understand. My father looked at the payment schedule. This is fair. More than fair. You could have destroyed us. I didn't want to destroy you. I wanted you to see me. Really see me. Not just what I could do for you. We see you now, my mother said quietly. We should have seen you all along. 6 months later I sat in my new apartment, the one I'd finally been able to afford, reviewing the payment statements. My parents were on track. Every payment on time. Their debt decreasing steadily. Kyle had moved out. Last I heard he'd gotten a job and was slowly figuring things out. We texted a few times. Short messages. Nothing deep. But it was progress. My relationship with my parents was cautious but growing. Sunday dinners once a month. Phone calls that weren't about crises. Conversations about normal things, whether work, shows we were watching. They'd asked about my investment portfolio. Seemed genuinely impressed by what I'd built. For the first time they saw me as competent. Capable. Not just the reliable one who cleaned up messes. My mentor called to check in. How's your investment performing? Good. Steady returns. Ethical practices. Exactly what we predicted. She didn't know about the personal connection. Didn't need to. The investment stood on its own merits. But I knew. I knew exactly how close I'd come to losing myself in their dysfunction. How I'd finally chosen myself instead of them. How setting that boundary had saved all of us. They'd cut me off when I wouldn't save them. They'd called back when they realized I didn't need saving at all. And somehow that made all the difference.